Welcome to this explainer broadcast of the Daily AI News Digest for July 16th, 2026. I'm your host, and this broadcast is sponsored by bestai.org. Today, we're looking at a market that is undergoing a massive financial and geopolitical realignment. We're going to cut right through the noise, skip the marketing hype, and look strictly at the data, the corporate shifts, and the very real institutional friction shaping the global AI sector today. So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the biggest market moves, then dig into product and model realities, look closely at some major regulation and policy signals, and finally, we'll wrap up with the analyst's take and what you need to be watching next. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The biggest moves today. Anthropic is now officially targeting a public market valuation of nearly $1 trillion. Now, you might be wondering where that number is coming from. Well, this isn't just speculative, future gazing. It's actually being structurally driven by some very heavy, measurable enterprise adoption of their automated software development agents. That core, reliable revenue is what's pushing their IPO timeline much, much faster than analysts had originally projected. Looking at the actual timelines here, Anthropic is now aiming for an IPO as early as October of this year, 2026. This is a definitive major shift in market momentum, especially when you consider that their primary rival, OpenAI, recently pushed its own listing out to 2027 while they deal with internal restructuring. Meanwhile, you have China's DeepSeek prepping for a late 2026 filing. So Anthropic is clearly stepping on the gas here to capture that early institutional capital before anybody else can get to it. Moving on to Section 2, Product and Model Realities. Okay, so OpenAI is making a highly aggressive pivot into physical hardware. They're developing a screen-free autonomous smart speaker, but they've hit some immediate serious legal friction. On July 10th, Apple filed a lawsuit alleging that former Apple executives who are now over at OpenAI basically orchestrated the theft of proprietary metal finishing techniques. OpenAI flat out denies it, of course, but the irony of a massive AI software company facing an intellectual property lawsuit over, of all things, physical metals, well, that's certainly not lost on the market today. Now, back on the software side of things, OpenAI just disclosed a system called GPT-Red. This is an internal security infrastructure that's designed to aggressively attack OpenAI's own systems before they ever launch to the public. It operates via self-play reinforcement learning. Essentially, the attacking AI gets reward for breaking in, and the defending AI is rewarded for stopping it. It's essentially an automated closed-loop wargame happening entirely behind the scenes. And the tangible, measurable impact of that internal testing is very clear in their new model, GPT 5.6 Sol. By taking all of GPT-Red's successful exploits and feeding them directly back into the training data, OpenAI has absolutely crushed their prompt injection failure rate. They've dropped it down to just 1/6 of what we were seeing just 4 months ago. Let's look at how this impacts some highly specific threat vectors. A deceptive step-by-step logic exploit, which is basically when an attacker plants false assumptions into a model's private memory to scramble its math or logic. Well, against the older GPT 5.1, this succeeded over 95% of the time. But against the new GPT 5.6 Sol, that success rate plummets to under 10%. So the numbers show that this automated adversarial training is definitively working. Section 3. Regulation and policy signals. This is critical. The U.S. military is currently issuing some severe directives aimed directly at Anthropic. The Air Force Research Laboratory is actually forcing its contractors to completely purge all Anthropic products from their systems. And the timeline here is incredibly tight. Audits are due by August 1st, and all code literally has to be removed by September 1st. That gives these contractors just a 1-month operational buffer before a much broader Department of Defense-wide ban kicks in on September 29th. To really understand the institutional anxiety that's driving these intense defense directives, we just need to listen to recent statements coming from financial sector leadership. Speaking at a Defense and Innovation Summit recently, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon was talking about the risks of advanced models that can autonomously identify cybersecurity vulnerabilities. He stated it quite plainly, saying, quote, "You're giving ballistic missiles to individuals with mythos." I mean, that captures the exact tension right now between commercial tech capabilities and real-world national security threat assessments. What we're seeing is a measurable pattern of federal intervention, and it's causing massive friction for commercial rollouts. Think about it. OpenAI's new model faced delays from a White House review. Anthropic is actively navigating this DoD purge, and earlier this summer, multiple models faced strict export controls. If your enterprise software relies on these frontier models, well, these aren't just interesting news headlines. They are direct material risks to your daily supply chain. Section 4. The analyst's take. What does this all actually mean? The cold business reality today is that we are watching a direct collision of two massive forces. On one side, you have unprecedented enterprise demand driving these frontier labs toward historic trillion-dollar valuations. But on the exact same day, these very same companies are facing incredibly complex federal blacklists and massive intellectual property lawsuits. The market right now is attempting to price in exponential growth while simultaneously having to discount for some very heavy geopolitical and legal friction. So for institutional analysts and stakeholders tuning in, here are the actionable indicators you need to monitor this quarter. First, keep a very close eye on that August 1st DoD compliance reporting. That's going to reveal the true depth of Anthropic's integration in defense supply chains. Second, monitor the initial discovery phases in those Apple versus OpenAI court proceedings regarding the hardware trade secrets. And finally, track the precise guidance coming from Anthropic's IPO underwriters. It's going to be fascinating to see how they attempt to balance these massive valuations against active federal blockades. Section 5. Outro and next steps. As public markets prepare to absorb and price the artificial intelligence sector at these historic, unprecedented highs, we have to ask, how will strict federal blacklists and mandated compliance audits ultimately impact those final valuations? Honestly, that is the defining question for the remainder of this financial quarter. Thank you so much for joining this explainer broadcast of the Daily AI News Digest. This analysis has been sponsored by bestai.org. Keep monitoring the fundamentals, stay objective, and we will see you next time.